Well, this is always interesting with the delay in time. So welcome to the third call on how to deal with anxiety during the COVID pandemic. I'm really glad that you joined me. And today I actually have some help, which is wonderful. And I will introduce her later in this call. But before we go there, the other day I really thought like, I want to use also this call to put out the word of gratitude for all those amazing people that day in and day out are fighting for our benefit, to really support us, whether it's in the hospitals, the nurses and the doctors, or the firemen and the policemen, or in the grocery stores and the truck drivers and all those people that are on the front line and really putting their lives at risk just to help us, give us medical support, give us something to eat. I just have to say I'm deeply grateful for that. So I want to just take 2 or 3 breaths of gratitude for those helpers. So if you're just going to join me, so inhale and just fill your heart with gratitude for all those that are out there supporting us, and send that gratitude through your exhale. And then again, inhale and fill your heart with love. And on the exhale, sending this love to all those people, those heroes that don't really get a lot of recognition. And third, inhale. And now send strength to those that they stay healthy and safe. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this and joining me in that. And maybe next time you see one of those heroes, you can give a personal thank you to them. I do this in the grocery stores these days, and it's really nice to see the response. Now, this pandemic hasn't really resolved itself, and it certainly hasn't completely slowed down. Although we have to say the social distancing seems to work for the virus, but the social distancing doesn't really seem to work that much for anxiety. I get a lot of people that are contacting me that tell me this is the worst anxiety they ever had. And it has a lot to do with just being not only in this really weird, bizarre circumstance of, being afraid of this invisible enemy, this virus, but it's also about this not having the distractions, not being as busy, not having the contacts, not being clear about the future, and the financial concerns on top of it that brings all this anxiety right to the surface. And that is why I really feel so passionate about these calls, just to give you some tools and some really hands-on processes on how you can deal with anxiety. Now, one thing I have to tell you, that the biggest mistake you can make, which a lot of people try to make, is to avoid anxiety. Because if we are avoiding anxiety, ultimately, the anxiety, since we are creating ourselves, this anxiety is like avoiding ourselves. So whenever we are saying, I don't want to think about my anxiety, I'm going to watch 8 hours of Netflix, or I'm really not interested in anxiety, I'm going to call my mom. Well, you can keep yourself occupied, and that works for a while. But then at night, when everything is quiet and there's no one to talk to and nothing to distract yourself with, the anxiety just glares at you, screams at you, is right there. And so the anxiety doesn't go away. It's a little bit like, this pain in the lower right of your abdomen where you're thinking like, well, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't like needles and I don't really have time. Hospitals are horrible. And well, the appendicitis doesn't go away. It's still there, and it will be there, and it will get worse if you're not really addressing it. So don't avoid your anxiety. Learn to really address it not with anger and not with fear, even though I know it can feel really overwhelming and paralyzing, but learn to address it more from a place of compassion, from a place of understanding that the anxiety doesn't try to hurt you, just like physical pain doesn't try to torture you. It just tells you something. It tells you that there is something inside that needs attention. And that's what those 5 tools today are about, to help you to address the anxiety from a calmer place. Because as many people as contact me with really rampage of anxiety, there are also an equal amount of people that tell me this is actually amazing how through what they have learned through the sessions with me, how they are able to just be calm and clear and centered, and how they feel that this time actually brings them closer to themselves, to life in general, to just enjoying the more simple things in life, to their spirituality, but also how it brings them closer to their purpose. They have a stronger sense of self than ever before. So I would love for you to also get to that place where you can see this time as an opportunity and not just as a curse or a huge challenge. So today I want to share with you my 5 tools of the anxiety survival kit that I've been using for years, that I really find very effective, that I've been sharing with my clients, and I think you can also hugely benefit from it. And for that, I want to bring on my helper, my business manager, Miroki Tong. Miroki, where is she?
I'm coming. There we go.
Incoming.
Incoming through the magic of technology.
Exactly. Well, Miroki, I really love your background because there are all these superheroes and whatever they are just right behind you. So you have an army of helpers.
Yes.
It's not only you that will help us in this call today. And so what I want to do is just to introduce the first tool of this anxiety toolkit, and that is getting centered. Now, getting centered is really, really important because, if we are not centered, naturally, we can be all over the place. And at the end of this call, I will actually have a centering meditation that you can also enjoy. And the call will be recorded on YouTube, so you can always go back to it and to that meditation as well. But, we all know centering is something that's important, that's, calms down your nervous system, gets you into this parasympathetic nervous system state, which is the healing and the relaxation state. But we don't necessarily know how to do that. Breathing is a good one. But how do we breathe? Now, I love one breathing technique that I find is incredibly effective because it stimulates equally the left and the right brain hemisphere. And it's called the alternate nostril breathing. So Miroki gonna demonstrate it for us. So what you do is you take the thumb and the index finger, and you're closing with your thumb the right nostril. And you're inhaling through the left nostril, slowly, deeply filling up your lungs. That's right, you can close your eyes if you want to. And then you close the left nostril and exhale through the right nostril. And then you inhale through the right nostril, close it with your thumb, and exhale through the opposite. And then you inhale through that nostril that's open right now, and you close it again. Then when you have all the air in, and exhale. And it's good if you let your eyes fall closed. And one of the things that I love about it is also when you just keep on breathing like this. So whatever is open right now, you inhale, then you close, then you exhale through the opposite side. You can add a little affirmation with it. For example, I'm at peace. Or on the exhale, you can say, I release all tension. And on the inhale, you can see, I bring in calmness and peace, clarity, whatever you want to do. just to add some really good intention through the breath. Now, when you do this breathing, what happens is that your blood pressure will go down. And that, as I said, the left and the right brain hemisphere get equally oxygenized. The left for the right-handers is more like the rational part of the brain. The right is more that creative, emotional side of the brain. And so you're just creating balance. And if you do this for 5 to 10 minutes a day, and I know it may feel a bit weird with closing the nostrils, and you may have to be sure that you have disinfected your fingers when you do that. But when you do this every day, you will just feel that your mind gets more in the habit of grounding itself, just because it's now primed to know, okay, we're doing this breathing. That means we are closing the eyes, we are relaxing, and then we feel afterwards more clear and more peaceful. So that's number one. So you're grounding yourself. You're just saying like, let's get out of this spin. I'm
You know
spinning
what
too much in my head.
Yeah, you know what I found was really nice about doing it, and it really helped you get in the meditative state as well, is just because you're concentrating on the inhaling and keeping your finger on your, and then you're thinking, okay, I need to switch it now. So your mind has just enough focus on a task so that it doesn't kind of go into the monkey mind, right? Like it doesn't get distracted, it doesn't get, it doesn't shift away into different thoughts, because you have this focus of thinking, like breathing in, oh, switch, breathe out, switch. So that's something I discovered when you were just walking me through the process.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I think also because you use your hands, you're not only using your breath. And then when you use again some kind of a word with it, then your mind is enough focused to stay in the present moment. Because in order to go into this more parasympathetic nervous system place, we have to be present. And this is what the second tool is about. The second is about, your senses,
Right.
getting your senses to the rescue. I mean, a lot of people have heard about this grounding exercise, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you're like describing 5 things you see in the room when you're stressed out, just to get yourself out of the stress. Then you do 4 things that you can feel right now, then 3 things that you are hearing right now, then 2 things you smell, and 1 thing that actually I was wrong. It's not. Now I forgot. It's a seeing, it's a feeling, it's this. What is the other one? Anyhow, smelling, and the last one is you're saying out loud something nice about yourself. Well, this is not what I'm going to teach. Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about with this one. I'm going to teach you something else. And what I'm going to teach you is something that's a little bit more deliberate, and that also uses a little bit more senses that are actually calming. I mean, it's helpful to focus on that, what you see just all around you. But those things can be neutral. Some may trigger you when you're looking around the things that you see, and you see all the clutter on your desk, then you may not actually feel any calmer afterwards. So it's better to focus on things in this practice of the senses that actually really cool you off, that bring you into a much more positive state of mind. So let's start with the seeing. So just look at something pleasant. Maybe there is something that you can right now in your room feel, oh, this is a nice picture. Or maybe your cat is sleeping in the sun. Or you're seeing, some little object. Like I have this beautiful rose quartz heart on my desk. So I'm looking at that and I'm feeling like, that calms me down. You can also, with the seeing, close your eyes and imagine something, your favorite place in nature. You can imagine someone you really feel safe with, your grandfather, your grandmother, even though they may not be there anymore. Just go into the visual, whether it's internal or external, to bring you into a calmer place. Spend there about a minute or so. Then you go into the feeling. So you use the tactile senses, something that you really feel like, that feels good. It can be a soft, blanket that you're just gently touching, or it can be the cat that you just saw and you're going to pet it now, or it can be a box of sand that you love to play with. Anything that you feel like gets you into that feeling place, those senses that really are occupying your mind with, okay, this is what's here and now. And one of my favorite ones is, and again, disinfect your fingers before if you have been outside, take your fingers, and Miroki can do it, just like touching your upper lips. Now there are countless, and it's really like doing a little tapping on the upper lips, because there are so many nerve endings that are connected to this parasympathetic nervous system. So you're stimulating that nervous system by just doing this little tapping and really noticing it. I mean, you want to notice, you want to pay attention to how it feels on your fingers as much as it feels on your lips, and that again gets you into that sensation. Afterwards, you go into the hearing, so you can hear some really nice sound. Maybe you have already some nice sound playing, some nature sound. Apparently, one of the most relaxing sounds are frogs, which I find just amazing. But science showed it's even more relaxing than wave sounds, so that would be nice. Or you can also chant this or mm. These are both sounds that are scientifically proven relaxing you, relaxing the mind, and make you just more connected to the present moment. And then you go into the smell, and the smell can be something like a lavender oil that you have handy and you're smelling, or you can also imagine a smell. I mean, it can be something that you actually have in your head as, oh, that always really made me feel safe. Like for me, it was the cigar smell of my grandfather, who, even though he was a strict man, he was also someone I really, really trusted deeply. So just thinking about how that smelled makes me calm. Now, the interesting thing about the smell is that it goes right into the brain, it goes right into the amygdala. And you may have heard about the amygdala. That is where anxiety gets launched in your brain. That's kind of this anxiety center. So if you have a very pleasant and relaxing smell that you can connect to, your amygdala literally calms down and your anxiety calms down with it. So smell is incredibly powerful. I mean, Miroki, do you have a smell that you would say is your most calming smell that you can suggest?
I actually am a lavender person myself as well. So I tend to have this like little pillow thing with lavender in
Ah,
it that you can,
yes.
heat up. Yeah, yeah. And then I would like cuddle it near my pillow. I found that really, really soothing in the winter. But sometimes I like to get like pre-mixed blends as well.
Mm.
Sometimes, when they say like, oh, here are what we think is a really nice premix blend for specifically stress or sleep. So sometimes I just trust the experts to make it for me, because I'll go, oh, well, here are some of the, feelings that I'm dealing with that I need to help calm me down. And sometimes it's like
Yeah.
stress, or sometimes it's anxiety. And I find that different smells like in aromatherapy help me in different ways. So then I'll get something that's pre-mixed for to address that specific emotion.
And that's a really, aromatherapy is a really good technique just
Mm-hmm.
to have ongoing. We have like a diffuser that's running in the house 24/7, and it just creates again, an energy that is calming, and
Mm-hmm.
that just soothes the mind. And again, it goes right to that core of your anxiety. And the last one is the taste. Taste is just something pleasant. I know that Danielle, my wife, would always have chocolate in that moment. Or you can have a chamomile that really tastes well, or a fresh fruit. It's almost like you end this whole getting yourself in the present moment with a little treat. Something like, okay, now I really am landed. I went through my senses, and my senses teach me I'm here, I'm safe, all is well right now. And this is, again, another grounding way. Very simple, but very effective to get yourself out of thinking about the past or the future or other people that you really cannot be with or help with right now. And our mind gets so thin stretched, it gets pulled in so many different directions that it just feels completely overwhelmed. Our mind is not capable of holding 5 or 7 different ideas at the same time. It just, gets into this overwhelm. And that's why it's so important just to give the mind a break. You call it pattern interrupt. When you go into anxiety pattern, interrupt it. And that is one of those interruptions. Now, the third tool is an anchoring tool. Now, you all have heard probably of Pavlov and his dogs. And if not, basically Pavlov was the guy who actually won a Nobel Prize for that, who found that when you are giving dogs a piece of meat and you are ringing a bell at the same time, well, naturally, because of the meat, the saliva is running nicely down their faces. But if you are, after a while, only ring the bell, they have the same reaction, even though there is actually no piece of meat in front of them. So that's the anchoring. And we are living in a constant anchoring response. The phone is ringing, we pick it up. We are having a doorbell ringing, we are looking out of the window who might be there. We have, the sound of, or the music, the intro music of our favorite TV show. We have some kind of an expectation around it. We have, as children, I mean, my mother had a big anchor in me whenever she called me for dinner. I mean, yeah, I think my heart rate went always up, especially if she said, Friedemann, that was a scary anchor. And so we all have these anchors. And the good news about the anchors is they are working in our mind as almost automatic little buttons that we can push to elicit a certain kind of emotion. Something that makes us feel, when it was my mother, she made me feel scared. But when it is something we do today, you can actually anchor states of peace and calmness into your anchor. In this case, the anchor is actually a little object that I would like you to have. So, Miroki, you have a little crystal or a little rock or something?
Yes, it is a fire polished stone.
That is beautiful. And I think we may all have a little piece of stone that we can anchor something in. I have about 4 in my pocket. So this is one that actually comes right from St. Catherine in Egypt.
Oh,
And
wow.
a dear friend gave it to me. And yeah, it's beautiful. So
Can you
let's
hold it
anchor
up to the
together.
camera? Hold it up
Yeah,
to the camera for them to see. Yeah, it's beautiful.
yeah, it is really beautiful. I do believe that these stones have some energy in them, and we can actually infuse now our little stone, like a stepping stone to peace, with some positive emotions. And how you do this is very simple. You hold the stone like this in your open hand, and you're just then closing your eyes. So Miroki, you can just do that. So you hold it up. So your fingers are open, exactly. Then you close your eyes, and then you think about a time in your life when you felt very peaceful. Something just that comes to mind that really brings up, oh, that felt peaceful, serene, calm. Can be a Sunday morning in bed, you have nothing to do, nowhere to go, and you just feel really cozy. And when you feel that feeling, be in it. Don't see yourself in the situation, actually feel yourself being in it. Remember the senses that were in that moment activated. Maybe you feel the pillow if you're in bed. Maybe you smell the nice coffee that's brewing outside. Maybe you feel the sun or see it shining. When you feel those good feelings of peace, you now close your hand into a fist and squeeze the energy into this little rock. Really feel like, yes, I'm transferring this positive energy into this rock. Hold it for about 10 seconds. And then you can just open it again. Perfect. And then allow yourself to go to another event, maybe like your favorite time on a vacation, a place in nature that you would say was really soothing. You were laying on a blanket looking at the sea. or the mountains, or you were under a tree, something that also again brings up peace and a sense of calmness. Let it rise inside of you, this positive feeling. And then squeeze the energy in when you feel it the strongest. And then you can open your hand again. And one more time, just come up to another. Maybe there is a person that you feel really peaceful with. Maybe there is a memory from your childhood. Maybe you feel very peaceful in a temple or a church. Whatever it is, fully immerse yourself in that memory. And then when you feel it, you can just squeeze that positive energy into that stone. Good. And now you can open up. Now just think about something completely different. Maybe just a white wall. And Miroke, I want you just to squeeze that little stone and notice if you feel something. You're so peaceful, you don't have any words. Lost for words.
Almost feels like the stone is like a little alive.
Oh. And what does it feel like holding it?
Feels like bubbly, like jumpy almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not,
And
yeah.
and does it make you feel more calm, or what does it feel like?
I definitely feel more grounded.
And it really depends on what you put in. So, some people may put in grounding energy that is more energizing. Some people may put in grounding energy or calming energy that is really more like, letting go. I use this rock and the anchoring actually when I was in research, not for the research part, but for beating a friend in squash who always beat me. I mean, it was ridiculous. I could be like so far ahead. And in my mind, I said, he's going to beat me anyhow. And of course, he's going to beat me. I've self-fulfilling prophecy. So at some point I said, I need my little anchor here. I need my winning anchor. I need this just going through until the end anchor. And so I put this in there and it was magic. It was absolutely magic. I just had to push my little anchor and I felt like I could, not lose. I could only win. And I just came up with moves and hits that I would have never thought of. So there is something really amazing about these anchors that really can make us feel whatever we choose to feel. So
It's
in
like
this
it's
case,
almost,
peace.
yeah, it's like using the anchor, and when you put the thoughts in it, it helps kind of trigger your subconsciousness, I guess, in some ways. Like you said,
Definitely.
with you beating your friend in squash, or for me to feel more grounded. So it's almost like it's a little reminder. It's almost like journaling, but simpler, right? It's like, here's your stone, and then you can use it as your reminder. It actually reminds me of when we were doing this exercise. It reminds me of it was almost like a reversal of when I was a kid. I had worry stones. I don't know if you ever like you
No,
can
what are
buy
worry
them.
stones?
Oh my goodness, it was such a big thing. Well, I don't know if it was a big thing, but I used to buy so many of them. So there would be a beautiful little polished rock, and you can get them in heart shapes or teardrop shapes, and it would have a little impression carved into it, and it was for you to rub. So if you ever were worried, you were supposed to rub the stone.
Well, that's very much like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in
So
this case, it was already charged, apparently, with, something that rubbing the worry away, which is also really a great thing. But, that's the beauty about the anchors. It's if you use it exactly in the same way, just like the ringtone of the phone is always in the same way, your mind responds exactly in the same way. When I don't know, when you think about a red light, just think about a red light. Wouldn't you automatically feel there's a stop? I mean, just like, intuitively, I see a red light or a stop sign, that's an anchor. And that's something that you just have learned over time to respond to, like a stop. And so that is what this rock is doing. And so find something, it can be a tile, it can be a rock, it can be a little action figure, something that you can just take with you. And during the day, when you feel like, oh, I need to find a little bit more peace, you just squeeze it. Or if you feel very peaceful, you can recharge it with that moment of peace, and therefore always have your little friend with you that reminds you it's time to be at peace. All right, number four. Number four of the toolkit is to actually have a little talk with your anxiety. Now, let me just digress for a second. What do you think about when you think about your anxiety?
Me?
Yes.
What do I think about when I think about my anxiety? Ooh, I mean, a lot of.
I mean,
So
how do
my
you
anxiety.
imagine your anxiety? How do you visualize or imagine your anxiety?
Well, my anxiety I find is very physical. So I affiliate a lot of my like physical responses. So for me, like my heart starts pounding a
Okay.
lot. So I guess my anxiety is very chaotic to me. It feels like that. I mean, you know me. I'm a very organized person. I'm very structured, and I always want to have everything planned and laid out. So it almost feels like my anxiety is almost like an unraveling of all of that. So it's
Yeah.
very chaotic, and it's very like it almost imagines like like constructs coming apart, but not in a beautiful way. It's like
Right.
messy and it's like messy and overwhelming. It's almost like seeing the mess you can't clean up. So I guess that would be how I would visualize it, like an impossible to clean up mess.
And I'm sure you are not the only one who feels exactly the same way. I mean, there are so many out there that feel exactly what you described, this kind of this messiness. And I mean, I have people telling me they see anxiety like a monster or a devil inside of them, this mean part that always criticizes them or says the worst thing can happen in the world. And so, overall, we don't really have a very good relationship to our anxiety. It doesn't feel like something desirable. And here's again the problem with this whole avoidance response. The anxiety wants your attention. I mean, the anxiety, like physical pain, is so strong because obviously it has an intention about whatever message it wants to deliver. Now, often the messages are about you're in danger, something bad's going to happen. Now, how often do we have the anxiety and actually everything is okay? It's all imagined. It's just like, you're making it up, or that anxiety voice, makes out of a molehill a mountain, or just imagine, the worst outcome of something. And that is something we feel then, the anxiety is almost like sabotaging us. But when you really backtrack, like a client of mine, he says right now, the worst about this whole pandemic is his response to it. And his response is going on overkill. Everything needs to be neat, organized. Counts his money countless times. He is always on this, control, and I need to be the one who needs to make sure that everyone is coming home with washed feet and washed hands and whatever. It's like he's in this do and overdo mode, and very vigilant and very multi-tasking and very micromanaging. It's a mode he doesn't like. It's a mode that exhausts him. It's a mode that really makes him feel that the whole weight of the world is on his shoulders. But that's the anxiety that makes him do this. Now, when I asked him, so is this a mode that's familiar to you? And he said, yeah, that's exactly the mode I was in when I was a kid, because no one was there for me. I was pretty much on my own. I knew my mom was busy, my dad wasn't there. So I just had to deal with everything myself. So he went, since that, whenever there was something potentially, unstable or a change or a challenge, he, since he was a child, went into that mode. Now his family wants to avoid him, now, and he doesn't make good decisions, and he is very drained with this. So it's not really a good mode as an adult. As a child, it may have worked, but as an adult, it's not a mode that brings him any closer or makes him, any more resourceful. So it's important to realize even though the anxiety is there, the pattern that the anxiety creates is usually something that's learned, and it's learned from way back. And you may have a pattern of also control, or maybe a pattern of when you're anxious that you are feeling very small and you want to just crawl into a hole, or when you're anxious you feel like you have to overthink everything and you have to think about all the different angles and plan ahead. Or maybe when you're anxious you're feeling like, oh, I need to find a savior, I need to make sure that someone's going to take care of me. And when you really look back, you know that these patterns have been there before, and that you carry them over from your own upbringing in your childhood. And this is why the root of anxiety can be found in our early years. Something, between the age of 5 and 15 is usually where we are learning anxiety, and maybe even earlier than that. And so that's why when we get anxious, we are not really competent, calm, confident adults. We are often acting much more like little children that are just, frantically looking for some answer or some way of being safe. So, make a long story short, when you think about anxiety, don't think about some weird energy or maybe this little monster inside of you. Think about more on a subconscious level that your anxiety voice comes from little mini you, the little self who just is inside and really looks with big eyes at you and saying, oh my God, what's going on here? Everything is so different, and I don't see any people anymore. And I heard about a virus, and what about the job? And all of those questions that come from within come from that little self that really just wants to have reassurance.
I did some little self work a little while ago. Actually, it was one of these practices that I haven't delved into yet, and I don't know why, because I knew all about it kind of intellectually. But one day I decided to actually spend some time and do an inner child meditation, and I'll tell you, like, I was in tears, like I was a wreck, because it was a lot of it was talking about giving compassion and giving a lot of love to that child. And even what you just said now, when looking at your younger self with wide with these big eyes looking at you, and they just want you to hug that child, I was like, it was a lot. It was a lot of work, and it was wonderful. Like I'm saying, it was really beautiful work, and I think everyone should definitely do it. But thought I would just share that it was some really intense work.
Well, yeah, I totally, absolutely. And it's intense because, there are two things that happen. On the one hand, it really opens our heart when we are ready to meet that little anxious self. And that in itself, can feel like vulnerable and brings up tears and sometimes also sadness for ourselves. But I also find on a subconscious level, sometimes it's actually that little self inside that feels really sadness or relief and has tears of, oh my God, someone actually pays attention to me. I mean, it's unbelievable if you do this following exercise just for a few weeks, which is ultimately having a little chat with that anxious self. Your anxiety thoughts, your little spinning will decrease by 70 to 80% in that time, simply because you are paying attention to a part of you that so desperately needs some kind of answer and reassurance right now. So what you're going to do is simply you're taking a piece of paper, you divide it into two columns. On the left, you're literally tuning into this anxious voice. Don't avoid the anxiety, sit with it. Ask, so I'm feeling right now, my heart is pounding. I'm feeling right now that there is somehow, everything spinning inside of me. So I wonder what my anxious self is trying to tell me. And you may get an answer. Something will come up. And what comes up for you is not the truth. It's not the reality. It's not like the magic 8-ball telling you what's going to happen. It's simply a question. Right. See this, whatever this younger anxious self is telling you, as a question. Are we going to be okay? Will our loved ones be okay? Will we run out of money at some point? Will the world end? What happens after we die? I don't know what questions you get, but just write those questions down and then step into the adult, the parent, the big sister, the big brother, anyone that you know you also have inside of you, because you also have comforted friends. You also have been the rock for someone else. You also know that there is a lot of wisdom there that usually you have been, giving to others, just not necessarily to yourself. So you step into that role and then you answer those questions. 3 a day is enough. Just really tune in and give answers. And that's all it takes. And if you want to give this little child a hug, like Hiroki, you said, this is beautiful. If you want to just, shoot the breeze and talk about other things with that child, that's wonderful too. The more time you spend, the more close you will get. And the more you get yourself into the role of that wise, competent, and compassionate adult, and you don't associate yourself with anxiety anymore, you see, oh, it's just a part of me. Anxiety is not all of me. And this whole feeling of overwhelm and feeling powerless with anxiety will completely go away. And I really believe that this whole work with the inner child is not just pop psychology. It's really something profoundly changing, and it's also opening our hearts. And right now, when you really think about it, when your heart is open, you feel calm. When you connect to love, you feel positive. When you go into your head and everything is spinning with worry and doubt, then you just feel the opposite. So if this little self helps you to get into your heart, more power to it. And so that's number 4 of that. Okay.
All
And
right.
now
And
the
actually,
last one. Yes,
I'm going
go
to
ahead.
stop you for a second there. Not stop you, but actually there's a question that's very specific to this one point. So I think it would be nice to address it. Someone just asked, you mean we have 3 anxiety attacks a day? And I don't think that's what we meant, right? We're just asking 3 questions to ourselves about being okay or addressing it. Maybe you can just
Yeah,
a question
yeah.
from
I mean,
Connie.
it doesn't have to be an anxiety attack in order to connect. I mean, you can just actually tune into your underlying anxiety. I mean, this is what a lot of people are feeling. There is just this current, this undercurrent of anxiety that seems to be constantly there, and just tuning into it and noticing, okay, what is it right now that I may want to pay attention to? And it doesn't have to be even anxiety. I mean, I'm talking to my younger self even when I'm not anxious, simply because it can be fun. And sometimes there is another feeling that I'm familiar with from that time. And it doesn't have to be, anxiety. It can be something similar. It can be a little bit insecurity. It can be a little doubt. It can be something of a sensitivity. It can be a little bit of thinking too much about, other people suffering. And I'm feeling then pulled into this, over empathy that we can also at times suffer from. So it doesn't have to be the full-blown anxiety attack. You just connect to a part of you that right now may just need a little bit of guidance from you, the adult. And we cannot go through this time with our child mind. Our child mind can help us. What's one thing about this child inside of you is that it also, once it's no longer anxious, has a lot to offer. I mean, a lot of people that have connected to their inner anxious self realize, well, that's a self actually who is incredibly creative. I mean, since ever I'm connecting to that self, I'm just writing stories. I'm much more, into cooking and painting, and because that creativity had been blocked by the anxiety. Or it can be the side that's really, able to connect to other people. And in the past, the anxiety may have made you more like shy and an avoider. But then when the anxiety is addressed and that part of you is actually coming to its power, all of a sudden you may feel like, wow, I'm actually the best friend ever. I have so much compassion and I'm so in tune with others, and I can so much, give them understanding and just an ear to listen to, or a shoulder to lean on. So you will see this is not just to appease the anxiety, it's actually also to to tap into something that you may not even have yet discovered about yourself. So
Right. I like tapping into my child for the innocence element of it. So
yes,
it makes, I think it makes life like, it makes the things that we now disregard as an adult more beautiful and interesting, like patterns on your ceiling. Like, you know, when your child used to spend copious amounts of time being so excited by just the littlest things because everything was new to you at the time. And now we just blow past things, right? Like it's like, oh, that's just another shelf or that's another book. And you know, when I look at it through a child's eyes, like, oh, like this book is has like a wrapping around it like this, or you know, the pages feel different. That's weird. Or like the ceiling is has this weird pattern on it, and I can see pictures in it. And I think that's really calming, helpful, and it allows us to kind of slow down a little bit and appreciate what we have around us versus taking it for granted.
that's a really such an important thing, the innocence, to remember the innocence. And you know, in my book that I'm just writing, I do actually have a whole chapter dedicated to how to reconnect to that innocent self, because that innocent self is seeing the whole world with much more magic and wonderment, and appreciates much more the simple things in life, and yeah, and lives more fully because of it. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, it's great.
Now,
Connie, I hope that answers your question.
yes. Well, number 5 is then it's called the Empowerment Accelerator. And those of you that may have worked with me before know that exercise. And the Empowerment Accelerator is basically just a way to, again, anchor, but this time you're anchoring actually a new belief, a new identity, a new way of being in life, especially right now, into your entire body. You know how physical is memorable? You know, we can in our heads, you know, think a lot about, you know, positive affirmations, but somehow they stay in our head. You know, I'm confident, I'm calm. But if it doesn't sink into your emotions, it's just words. And if from the emotions it doesn't go into your physical form, you will never live accordingly. You will just always somehow have an inkling of, yeah, I want to be that calm, centered, confident person, but somehow I don't really act the way I want to. And so that is what the Empowerment Accelerator is doing. It really helps you to be the person that right now we focus on peace and calm and feeling grounded. So simple steps. First step is that you're actually going back to positive feelings, such as, you know, you anchored into your rock, but now you're imagining yourself having those feelings, and you're actually visualizing yourself from the outside this times as that grounded, wise, with the inner child communicating self who just has a complete relaxed way of looking at the situation, just trusting itself, appreciating itself. So close your eyes and visualize that self right now. Just notice how that person looks like. And you can just do this, Miroki, because you can then also demonstrate the next step. And so you visualize that self, and maybe you want to give that self like, you know, a statement, an I am statement. I trust and believe in myself. I appreciate myself. I'm calm and centered. I'm confident. I have all the resources I need to create the life that I want, to face any challenges I may encounter on my path, whatever you want, just something that resonates with you. So then visualize that person and then feel the positive feelings as you visualize this person rising up inside of you again. You can even squeeze your little rock. You can feel now, okay, I'm feeling more emboldened. I feel more centered and grounded. I can see that empowered version of myself really infusing me with all those good feelings. Now, when you feel it stronger, Now embody this person. It's as if you are stepping into this person, this future, or this new empowered self. You go and take on the body posture. That means like shoulders maybe back. Maybe the facial expression is in a nice, relaxed, confident smile. Notice how that self is breathing. And just really feel like that you're right now in training yourself cellularly to that person that you really want to be. It's no longer just an image, it's no longer just a feeling. You are adjusting your physiology, your body to it. That's right. Now you are feeling it even stronger all the way from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And now you're boosting it by going into a powerful stand. This can be like, raising the fist up in the air. This can be going into like a yoga posture, uh, like a warrior posture. This can be having, both arms in the air, like in victory mode. Whatever you want to do, you just boost the energy so that you feel even more strongly for your body. And this is what I want to embody. This is what this symbolizes. And then you can change the posture 2 or 3 times. Just, one time you can be in the one where you are right now. Now switch into something else. Just something that feels, you can even move your body. Exactly. You can move. You can have, anything that reminds you of feeling empowered, feeling connected to this inner resource. And then the last step is putting your hands on your heart and just spending a moment committing to this. Really committing to, this is who I want to be. And even if I can be this person only for an hour or 30 minutes today, doesn't mean that I will not have the chance the next day to be a little bit longer in that role. I just have to remind myself and then visualize maybe a situation today where you can embody this, where you can feel, that you are the rock, that you are that person to lean on, that you are the one that makes wise decisions to turn on nice music and turn off the news. Whatever it is, that this person that you want to be, the calm, centered, confident one would do. And then you can inhale, and on the exhale, open your eyes. Cool. So how did it feel?
Felt good. Felt good. Definitely can. What's really nice is like you feel more confident, but there's a sense of relaxing in there too. Because part of that confidence and part of in visualizing that positive, confident self is that that person is not a tense person. That person isn't a stressed person because they have the tools and they have the skills necessary to move past whatever's causing whatever that anxiety or that stress is. So,
and we do have those tools inside, we just have to remind ourselves of that. So in one of our future calls, I will talk about beliefs and inner identities and how to change them. And because that's really important. Sometimes we forget that we are way more resourceful than we give ourselves credit for, especially when we are anxious. But for now, really use this Empowerment Accelerator just to get yourself into a resourceful state, into a positive state, because, it's better than drinking coffee. It gets you way more boosted up, and it also feels that you're growing in this process. Because let's face it, we go through this pandemic and nobody will be the same person after it's over or once we get through it. And we have a choice to either be a more anxious and more worried person or feel more empowered and more confident because of it. And so that is what the Empowerment Accelerator can help you. Now, these are the 5 tools. And again, you can listen to this or watch this again on YouTube later on. But I think we have some questions that that
We
were
do.
asked.
We
Yes.
do. We have questions that were sent in advance of the call. And we actually got a few during this as well. So let's go through all of them. I'm going to try and and if you have any questions as all in the YouTube, you're welcome to comment and leave a question for us, and we'll try and get to it as well. We do have some great questions from people today. So Friedemann, one of the questions that came in is asking about, one thing about isolation is that the phone seems so much more unavoidable. So people are expecting you to be available at every moment. And so I suppose it's like on one hand, you're isolated and you're away from people, but on the other hand, you're expected to be available all the time because it's so easy to have someone call you or Skype you or message you. And what are some of your thoughts on that? Perhaps maybe for grounding or establishing boundaries, communicating with the people you care about?
All of that. I think that's really important because, I feel it's very helpful to have some contact and to not lose connection to your family and friends if you cannot see them, but really schedule it in. I mean, if you feel like it actually is more pressure to be always available, then it's better for you to be proactive and say, I'm going to call you, Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock or something like that. And then people know that, there is a time when you're going to chat, rather than you feeling like you always have to be at the beck and call of somebody else. And I think, it's nice, appreciate that people are reaching out, appreciate that, you are obviously somebody who is cared for, but also, appreciate and honor that you may need time for yourself, and then you need some time in quiet, and not feeling like always someone is virtually knocking at your door. So I think just create also some healthy boundaries in that. And sometimes when people are always checked on, it's also creating a certain kind of worry. It's like, oh, they check on me to make sure that I'm okay. And this constantly feeling bombarded with somebody else's worry can put you into worry too. So that's also a good idea, to have a boundary with that and really say, let's check on each other maybe only once a day and not 5 times a day, or only twice a week and not every day. And that can be helpful too.
Great advice there. Thank you. And thank you for sending in your question. Oh, we have this wonderful question.
Yeah.
I think it's because you talked about your book. They're wondering when your new book will be published.
Well, it's going to get published when it's done, but I'm getting close. I'm getting close. So I hope it's going to be at least in the hands of the publisher this year, and then usually it takes about 6 months to a year to get published again. And it's about survival mode, how to get out of survival mode. So that's going to be, I think, especially since most of us are feeling in survival mode right now, I think it's going to be a very timely book for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, for everyone who loves Friedemann's work, you can always stay tuned, via YouTube, his website, drfriedemann.com, and his Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, you name it. So we're very well connected. So you can always learn of all our updates on his book and all his other work through there as well. So Friedemann, there was a question that was emailed to us. It was talking about, because of the virus, all his or her family members, including siblings, father, and they all recently lost their jobs. So that's really unfortunate. But they're very thankful. I'll read the question directly. It says, "Thank the Lord, we still have money to afford food, bills, and so on. My question is how to deal with my father in a healthy way. Before the virus, I wouldn't see him at all because he would work every single day, and this person's siblings and the person barely spoke to him. But she says, now he's home every day and it's a little uncomfortable. The reason why my siblings and I rarely speak or have a relationship with him is because he's a very toxic person. Although he tries not to be so negative, I still feel like it's hard to enjoy his presence 90% of the time. What is a way to be more forgiving and understanding? I love him. It's just really hard."
Well, I think that you love him is already a really, really good place to start from. I mean, obviously you haven't given up on this relationship, Otherwise, you wouldn't ask that question. Now, trust me, nobody loves being negative. This is not something that he enjoys either. So he is just in that place, and that may be his way of dealing with his anxiety, or feeling like, his survival mode made him be more, negative, or having to be in control. And people that push others away with negativity deep inside usually need others the most. They just don't know really how to connect. So what I would suggest is just try to connect with kindness. Try to connect with things where it's not about the current situation, or maybe even the time when you never saw him, but try to connect maybe through things of the past, like his childhood. I mean, my dad could be very intense, but it was always fun when I asked him about his childhood, even though he was very poor and he lost his father early, but he had good stories to tell, like, when he was taking care of pigs, and he had this one pig, he just had to whistle and it just always ran and come to him. And sometimes it was running so fast, it was actually, sliding out because it couldn't keep its excitement at bay. And, maybe your dad has some fun stories too. And just, opening his heart gently, appreciating him, and start also seeing him softer. Sometimes it's us holding someone in that, tight judgment that makes people feel judged, and then they're acting accordingly, defensive, closed down. If you are starting to see your dad differently and act towards him differently because of it, he may actually have a bigger chance to open himself up again, and probably feel also closer. And now that everyone is together, this is a chance for the family to heal. Use that chance. It may never come again. So I think forgiveness, love, and just trusting that there's also some light and goodness inside of him that just waits to come out. I think all of those things will help.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. So another question that came in was, what does becoming your best self mean? I'm wondering because it implies you are currently not good enough.
Not really. I mean, I think the best self just basically means that we are always growing. And we are growing with the circumstances we're in. And, we have been living in a certain kind of a comfort zone before this pandemic. And there were not certain resources needed, or we didn't think about them or tap into them. So the best self means the best self for this current situation, which got us out of our comfort zone. And now out of that comfort zone, we are facing the choice of going into the anxiety and survival, or going into tapping into our resources and figuring out who else can we be. So that's what I mean, the best self for now. Because once we go through this, then there is another situation where you can grow and become the best self for that situation. So that's what I mean. So you're definitely not good enough.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, we are always enough. And I think that's something that's really important for everyone to always remember, is that we are always enough. Like, none of us are ever not good enough. I think that is something, like, a really, painful and negative self-image that has, unfortunately, a lot of people feel, a lot of insecurity that people feel. But I think it's a really good time to remind everyone that all of us are good enough. It's just we all have the opportunity, as you say, to become better and better and grow throughout our lives, because our potential is infinite in some ways.
You're so right, especially the I'm enough, not even good enough, just saying I'm enough. I had just like 2 weeks ago a client who was struggling, and I just let him say this out loud, I'm enough, and let the words sink in. I mean, he was really, really like melting away and crying, because he never has seen himself like this. And it made such a difference, just this freedom of finally giving himself permission to know that he is enough. That was life-changing.
Yeah, for sure. We have two questions about sleep. The first one asked if you have any idea about why they fall asleep, but 5 hours later they wake up really worried, and it only happens when they're worried or anxious about something.
Yeah, I mean, so that means about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, waking up, depends on when you go to bed. But, there are different reasons for that. It can be that, this is, you go to bed, you can fall asleep easily because you're so exhausted. There was so much just, going on. You may have expended so much energy and maybe just, being anxious. But exhaustion with anxiety can also make you just basically crash. And then at
Hmm.
5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, when you have a little rested, your mind gets reactivated and it's quiet and there is no distraction. And then again, that inner anxious self wants some answers and uses this opportunity to talk to you. It
Right.
can also be on a physiological level that your cortisol level is so low. This is usually the time when it's the lowest, that which actually triggers anxiety.
Right.
When your core, it's almost like, we always associate cortisol high levels with anxiety, but actually when they're very low, that can also trigger anxiety. It's almost as if the mind says, well, you're not really prepared because your cortisol is so low. It
Right.
can be a
Absolutely.
nightmare. In Chinese medicine, that time is about the lungs, and the lungs are about grief,
Hmm.
sadness, exhaustion. So there may be all different kinds of ways, but when you wake up in the morning, just allow yourself to not feel that this is something to avoid. I mean, this is the ambrosial hour usually at 5 o'clock. That means like this is a time where you can best meditate, whether it's a guided meditation or whether it's a little journaling or whether it's a little breathing, and then go back to bed. Don't,
Hmm.
toss back and forth. Just do a little bit something to really address the mind, to soothe yourself, and then have for a few more hours of sleep.
I think this helps answer the following question too about how people have been dreaming a lot about COVID-19. They feel like that's when they're trying to analyze and solve it. They don't actually feel that anxiety during the day, but once they go to sleep, their sleep becomes very fragmented and they get really restless and they wake up a lot because they're having all these dreams where they're trying to solve it or analyze the virus and everything that's going on with the world.
Well, and that's the subconscious. I mean, that is, the subconscious speaks to us in dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means you have probably during the day ignored certain thoughts that are bubbling up from the subconscious. You may have ignored, this little anxious self. So if you have those thoughts, write them down and address them either at night or ideally in the morning times when you think more clearly, and maybe during the day. And your dreams will become much more peaceful because the subconscious doesn't use the dreams anymore to connect to you and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and wants answers from you.
For sure, for sure. I'll ask one or two more just because I know we're running out of time and I know you really do want to share meditation with everyone. Thank you for everyone who's sent us questions via social media or via email. I wish we could address everything. Maybe we need to do a call that's just a Q&A sometime, Friedemann.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna definitely
Uh,
do a call again in 2 weeks anyhow. So
Yes, yes. So maybe we will maybe start with questions next time or something, and give everyone an opportunity to have their questions answers. But let's look at these ones because these two had to do with because it's a very holy time for a lot of people. People are celebrating Easter. My partner just celebrated Passover with his family, and and I think sometimes because it's a time when families are gathering together, because a lot of us are isolating, we don't have the opportunity to visit each other and see each other. And one thing I actually heard was that people are actually deliberately isolating themselves or not communicating because they feel too sad. Um, so one thing I heard was that someone did not want to virtually join a gathering, a family
mhm.
gathering, because they said, I'm just going to be too sad. And what are some methods how to move out of that spiral? Because I think that would just make a person more lonely and more isolated over time if they choose not even to engage with or
Yeah,
connect with their family during this time.
I totally get it that it is sad, but I also feel it's really important that we are adjusting our expectations. This is not the time to look at what is not or what is not anymore. This is a time to really embrace what we still have and what we can still do to have connection. We only get disappointed or sad if we are feeling, well, this is the one way we want it. And if it's not happening that way, I gonna be mad or sad and disappointed, and so I just disengage or get, into my corner and feel bad about myself. And that's absolutely understandable, but it's not helpful in the long run, because I don't know how long this pandemic will last, and I don't know how fast we can really get together again in, in bigger crowds. So it may take another few months, 6 months, a year, who knows? But we have to really adjust. And that means adjusting our expectations and finding really what's important. Is it important to be there in person, or is it important to actually just see everyone, which we can do through Zoom and Skype and so on, and just feel connected? Can we feel that the connection goes beyond that physical closeness? Because I feel, this is what quantum physics always talks about, how we are all connected anyhow through that field. So maybe we can just tap into this a little bit more and really realize that I can be in a heartfelt connection across the globe and feel like, I'm right there with that person because I feel love or I feel supported, whatever it is. So changing a little bit our perspectives and our ways to connect and being happy with that. I think, when I think back at, this big flu epidemic in 1918, well, people couldn't connect. The only way to connect was with letters, and they couldn't be delivered most of the time. So you really felt isolated if you were by yourself. And I think we have such an amazing technology that helps us to stay in touch. And just like right now, I'm connected to all of you from the middle of France. So this is certainly something that I really appreciate about our modern era that we are in, because it can really bring us closer together.
Right, absolutely. It's always important to remember what we have, and that we're grateful to be in a time where we can be connected, that we have access to cars and resources that so many others may not have. And maybe also spend, when you remember that gratitude, also kind of extend some compassion to those who may not have access to those resources
Yes,
right now.
definitely. I mean, we are the lucky ones for sure. There are so many people that I pray at night for that do have, no one that has given them kind of medical access, that are all on their own, that are basically suffering. I'm talking about, the places, the slums in Brazil and India and Africa and so on. I mean, that is suffering I cannot even imagine, and my heart goes out to those for sure.
Thank you so much, Friedemann. So I think that's it for the questions today.
Awesome.
We will gather any additional ones over time, and we can always address them at our next call.
Yes. So I would love to end with just a brief meditation. And that meditation is about getting you back into yourself. So it's basically, the idea is that we get pulled into all different kinds of directions, as I mentioned. And in this case, it's our mind that latches on to different topics and conversations and past and future, but it's also our energy, the energy of the electromagnetic field that's surrounding us. Some call it the aura, but it's basically the energy that keeps us in place, that reminds us of the here and now. And when we are going into all these different places, and when we are really stretched thin, we are just energetically not able to sit still, to feel that rootedness in the moment. And this guided meditation gives you a way to do this in just a few minutes. So get comfortable. And I think Miroki going to do a little video or picture or something with it to make it even prettier. You can just close your eyes and allow yourself to take 3 breaths in and out. And just allow yourself, with every breath you're taking, to feel that the air goes a little bit deeper down, all the way down inside of you. And at some point, you can imagine your electromagnetic field. It's the energy that is surrounding you up to 6 feet in all directions. And I want you just to notice how your electromagnetic field looks like. Is it like a nice oval, egg-shaped overlay around your body? Or more likely, does it feel like it has been pulled into all different kinds of directions? And if you are noticing that it has been pulled, just see the little threads of energy that, like little filaments, may be attached to people, places, events that are not really about the here and now. Maybe they're holding on to the news you heard, to some people you cannot be with right now. Maybe they reach out into the past or into the future. Just notice how many directions and how many little filaments are pulled away from your electromagnetic field, and how thin you may have stretched yourself because of it. And since you want to feel more calm and grounded, let's bring all of this energy back inside of you. And to do this, with every breath, and you breathe just gently and normally, but with every breath, you pull this energy into the present moment, into your sphere around you. Imagine that you can bring those strands and filaments back into the now, into your electromagnetic field, unhooking yourself from those places and people that you were holding on to, disentangling yourself from any worries about the future, detaching yourself from any sadness about the past, untying yourself from any expectations from others. Really imagine that you bring all those little filaments of your energy, even from your loved ones, even from those directly around you, just back to yourself. Detach, release, let go, so that this is all now connected to your own electromagnetic field. And at some point you will feel that your whole energy around you is in that ideal oval or egg-shaped field. And once you feel that you are nicely contained within you, and that your energy is nicely surrounding you, bring your focus now into the inner core of your being. Focus on the center of your heart. And imagine that you can connect to a light within your heart. Some may call it the source of your being, essence, your signature energy, your heart flame. Just focus on that light, that source of love, inspiration, resilience, compassion, that overall sense of gratitude for being alive. And just notice that being connected to this light in itself makes you feel calmer and more at ease. And now when you take a few more breaths in and out, I would like you to imagine that this light becomes brighter and wider and starts flowing from that core of your being out through your heart, expanding through your chest, spreading like the rays of the sun, gently warming and relaxing your entire upper body, or like the rings of water spreading from a pebble tossed into the pond. Noticing how this light, in a relaxing way, is now taking over your arms, your abdomen, your pelvis, all the way down your legs, and just feeling this light more and more filling you up. Peaceful, tranquil. And all of you feel somewhat stronger at the same time. Your cells, your nerves, your muscles. And at some point, your whole body is just that light. And the light is now expanding into your electromagnetic fields. From your physical form, it's entering into your energy. And that energy fills that field around you and recharges it so that it becomes a protective shield, a protective bubble of self that surrounds you. And this protective bubble acts like a filter. And all those energies of stress or negativity from the outside are simply staying on the outside, while you feel calm and relaxed within your bubble. Imagine yourself in a situation where you were bombarded, maybe with somebody else's anxiety, or maybe you watched something on TV and in the past you would have been affected by it. But now imagine how this field is protecting you and how these outside influences are hitting the shield and bouncing right off. This doesn't make you not care or not have compassion, but it keeps you contained in that present moment, and it keeps you contained within that healthy and peaceful sense of self. Those negative outside influences no longer affect you. You feel safe and relaxed in your protective shield, in your recharged electromagnetic field. And you can use this shield anytime you want to. All you need to do is simply to remind yourself that you can charge it up from within, and it will immediately inflate itself around you like a cocoon, like a protective force field of your own safety and sense of self. And of course, you can still allow all positivity and love and support to go through the shield. It doesn't get blocked away. Anything that you choose to take in and anything that you choose to send out and share with the world, your shield doesn't stop you from that. But your shield is simply a way for you to know that no matter where you are, no matter what the circumstances are, you can feel yourself. You're not losing yourself any longer in all the spinning that may happen around you. You feel more positive, more self-reliant, and more determined to be your best self. And since the shield is created by you, you can always adjust it and make it just perfect for your own needs and interests. And in a moment when you come back, you still will have the awareness of being contained in this bubble. You still will feel so much more at ease and present and grounded than before. And those positive feelings will stay as long as you choose them to be with you. So as I count from 0 to 5, you can come back into the here and now. 0, 1, 2, just start noticing more your physical form again. 3, take a nice breath in. 4, let your eyes almost open up. 5, open your eyes. Welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little protective shield that just keeps your energy centered and grounded within you. There are more guided meditations on this channel, on the YouTube channel. We just uploaded one about the best self, and which is a lot also about your immune system and strengthening and boosting your ability to stay healthy and well. They are anxiety meditations, and just browse around. I'm sure you'll find them. Well, Miroki, thank you so much for being on this chat today. Unfortunately, it was so good that I have to have you next time again. I loved it. So thank you very much. And I don't know, are you muted? I think yes, you have muted yourself.
Wanted to make sure the meditation was all very peaceful without me rummaging in the background. So
you should sit down and close your eyes. Well, next time I get you to do that.
But then you might not find me after this.
That's right. You'll be drooling on the floor probably.
I'll be too happy. Well, thank you so much for having me on the call and join you for the first time, Friedemann. It was really wonderful being able to help you share your messages and connect with everyone out there who's been reaching out and asking all their questions.
Well, it was a great pleasure, and thank you for everyone who tuned in, who was asking questions, and spread the word. We will have another call in 2 weeks, and also Empowerment Radio this Thursday will have a very, very wonderful guest, which is all about healing yourself when against all odds, when everyone tells you you can't do it. So tune in this Thursday at noon Eastern and 9 o'clock Pacific time.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. And
thank you.
If you have any questions, just keep on reaching out at the website, drfriedemann.com. If you need any personal help and want to sign up for some sessions or the breakthrough program, we can always chat about this beforehand and see what I can do for you. Take good care and stay in a peaceful, calm, and grounded place. This is the best way to get through and also to grow from this time. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Goodbye.